Hi, everybody. Ryan Biehl here with Biehl Brothers Contracting. I have Eric here, which we just were fortunate enough to serve his family with a large-scale remodel. And I just want to take a few minutes of your time, selfishly, to pick your brain about the process and just to say thanks. Thanks for blessing us with this project.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming back and checking out the house now that it's a little bit more lived in, but it's good to have you back here.
Thank you. Less dust for sure. So one of the things that I was very interested in, we were kind of talking off camera about this a little bit, is you have a very unique perspective, which is one of the things that makes talking about this right now even a bigger deal for me, because you actually work to buy and sell businesses, and you've kind of done a little bit of everything from buying and selling businesses, including like a lot of legal background, right? Mm-hmm. And I was so curious of, it's hard enough for people to hire a contractor. It's hard enough for people to trust people in their home. And it's almost like, I would imagine, like the equivalent of a mechanic buying a used car. Mm-hmm. You know all the things that can go wrong. You have information that is far beyond what's normal. Could you tell me a little bit about this process of what it was like to hire somebody with this information and to see that walk out?
Yeah, so it's funny, every time you decide you're gonna do a remodel project, the first thing you hear is, whatever your contractor quotes you, it's gonna be 1.5 times as much and 1.5 times as long. And one thing that I've seen through my business is when you have folks who have skin in the game, there tends to be more alignment. So when I got to meet you guys and talk with you guys, I saw that you had skin in the game. Your name is on your shirt and on your company, but also the process and the vision of where you wanted to go. You're an EOS company, which obviously has a place in my heart. We both share the same EOS facilitator. But to know you had skin in the game in terms of, hey, we want to make sure this project is done. We want to make sure it's done right, because long term we're building something here, more than just doing a project, being one of the fly-by-night contractors who's trying to maximize every single dollar on the project, but really is trying to build long-term reputation and value in your business. So for me, that stood out, head and shoulders above kind of the competitors who were more salesy in nature, and came in and had a really heart-to-heart conversation about what this is going to look like, what it's going to cost, and how it's going to work. And I might not know a decent amount about business, but I know next to nothing about contracting and general contracting. So,
speaking of a lot going on, there's a real ramp up with, you had a lot of decisions to make, which, thank you, that was one of the things that was so remarkable about doing this project. You guys were just very decisive. Like you really kind of worked through that process, I felt like, pretty quickly. How did that feel from your end? Like just all the selections and kind of deciding what to do with the products. How did you feel about that process?
Yeah, well, I'm extremely lucky. My wife is a decision maker
Yes.
at heart and handles a lot of that. So she did an incredible job kind of sorting through all of the nuances, the finishes, the finishing touches, and everything that would have taken me years to select. She handled it quickly. So the better half is definitely the better reason why that happened. But from your guys' perspective, working with you and all the folks you work with was, everyone who we met with was incredibly gracious and thoughtful, and treated us at the right level of where we were at. What did we know? What did we not know? Was it time to give input, or was it time to just take the advice and let's move forward? Whether that was Bluebird Cabinets or Rupert HVAC, anybody who we got to work with was fantastic there. Now, you mentioned that we had quite a lot going on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we moved in with our in-laws, which is always fun. Thankfully, I love my in-laws.
Yeah, because there was really no safe place for you to be here. There was stuff everywhere.
Yeah, all 4 floors had something going on.
Yeah.
Whether it was, tools hanging out or dust or whatever. And, one of the things I was really impressed with is you guys said, hey, we'll make it work. If you guys want to stay here, we'll make it work. We know you got a lot going on. Thankfully, we had an alternative option. And we welcomed our daughter Quinn to the world during this project. So remodel, new kid, living with the in-laws. My wife started a new job at her company.
That I did not know.
Yeah, there's quite a lot happening all at once. But you guys made it easy.
Oh man, wow, thank you. I think one of the things I've heard both of you say, which I appreciate, is you each work to your strengths. It sounded like you kind of, a lot of your responsibility was kind of finding us, and a lot of her strength was in kind of making a lot of those decisions. And you guys work through that in tremendous teamwork, because I know that from our end of things, that's something that can sometimes strain people. It's one of the things I like people to know. I often tell people, working towards a remodel is often a part-time at least, or a full-time job, especially a whole house renovation.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you unpacking that a little bit.
One of Colleen's strengths, my wife, one of her strengths is the discipline of keeping things on track. So when Brian and I met early on, you guys have a very kind of set process for how you do things and how things are going to move forward. And he was flexible enough to think through and say, okay, how do I work best with you? How do I work best with Colleen? And those are different styles. For me, it's I want to handle fire drills and when things go off track. And for Colleen, it's when things are on track, I want to make sure people are communicating. So using the Co-Construct app, there were, if not daily, at least weekly updates on where we are, how we're going, schedules updated. Brian, Kenny, the whole team was incredibly communicative, which I know put my wife at ease. And when things went wrong, they weren't shy about giving me a call and saying, hey, here's where we're at, here's how it looks, and moving forward and making decisions quickly. So it worked well for both of our styles.
Well, and I remember being in this very room and asking the two of you, what is important for me to know about you two that I don't currently know? And that was one of the things she was very, very clear on, that I love. And she had, emphatically said, the communication was probably like the most important thing for her, as far as like keeping track of the project. It wasn't the most important thing on the project itself, but do you feel like we delivered on that for you?
Absolutely. I think, back to that information I got on contractors, it's going to take 1.5 times as long and cost 1.5 times as much. They also said you got to be on top of them. You got to be at the house every single day. I think there was like a 3-week period where we did not stop by the house, did not have like a need to, because there were pictures, there was communication, there was updates, everything was coming through so seamlessly that we felt like things were in great hands and we trusted you guys to get it done, and you absolutely delivered.
That's good to hear. So if you were giving advice to somebody about this kind of process, now that you've been through this huge process, a friend or a colleague that's going to do something like this, now that you've kind of lived through it, moved out, moved back in, had all these major life changes, what would be like a couple of real key takeaway pieces of advice you would offer somebody if they asked?
Yeah, I would say obviously check your references. So happy to be one for Biehl Brothers if you're looking for them.
Well, that's why we're here.
But I would say look for a group that has skin in the game. That's not just they're doing something bigger than just doing your project, right? It's not the one thing they're doing this year and going on to the next thing. They're trying to build something bigger because it means they have to do a really good job for you because reputation compounds. I'd say one of the things that really stood out to me when we were chatting early on was the dedicated team and having folks who are dedicated here. Kenny being on site whenever I pop by meant a lot. Understand it's tougher to staff that way than it might be if you kind of have people coming and going all the time. But it was great to be able to pop in, talk with him about the smallest detail or the biggest project scope, and having Brian over top was huge as well. So I would say make sure you have folks who have skin in the game. Make sure you have someone who you can talk to about the details of the project directly, and then ultimately you have to like them. That's a
Yeah.
big piece.
Rapport is a big thing.
Right?
Yeah.
Is, hey, if things go wrong, I need to be able to call you and have a conversation, and know that we're going to be okay at the end of it because we have a good rapport. You know, a project, a housing or remodel project, nothing's going to be perfect ever. We knew that going in. Everybody knew that going in because, you know, you take a house that was built in 1910 and applies a little bit of 2023 magic to it, there's going to be some issues. But at the end of the day, we work through all of it, and I think that comes from liking the people you're working with.
Yeah, I agree, and I always say that that's big for us too, because fortunately, and I appreciate everything you said about, you know, having skin in the game, and we want to, you know, identify a company that wants to go somewhere. And one of the things I tell people from our end too is it really is a job interview both ways. I mean, you have to find a great contractor, but we're to the point in our career where we can kind of pick who we want to work for. And it was wonderful that you were referred to us, but also just getting to meet you it was actually the business event. I think we it was the first time we met face to face.
Yeah.
And to be able to have the luxury of setting your path to where you can work for the kind of people where you have a rapport, where you have things in common with is everything for us. So I appreciate you being willing to do this, and I appreciate you being that kind of person and blessing us with this work.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was stressful at times, but it was a lot of fun overall. And, you know, the flexibility you guys showed throughout it, as we were kind of working through the project and trying to figure out what is the scope, how does that all work. You know, we threw landscaping and gutters at you, you know, so we added more contractors.
Yeah,
to
a
the
couple
mix.
little railings and things.
Yeah,
Yeah, a little,
exactly.
yeah.
But being able to work through all of that, I think it really turned out extremely well. We're very happy with it. You know, it was just 7 degrees in Cincinnati a couple weeks ago, and our house would not have been somewhere where we could have stayed for that week, you know, before this.
Yeah.
So now, you know, Quinn slept soundly at 69 degrees, which is awesome.
That's good, because well, that was the other thing.
Yeah.
It was communication and comfort.
Yep.
You know, making sure we got that. Oh, that makes me feel so good to have that, because I knew that was the mission, and you know, I went to bed more than one night thinking about just making sure that, you know, we got there for you guys.
Yeah.
So I always ask this question because I always say that, you know, no matter how good things are, you can always get better with every attempt. And you know, now that you've kind of become, you know, part of the family, so to speak, and all that, what are some things now that you see, things that we could have done better, things that we can grow from? It's good you're thinking a lot, by the way.
I think there was a reliance on the Co-Construct app, and from a like text-based side of the Co-Construct app, it stayed up to date incredibly well. You know, we were kind of trying to get back into the house at a certain date, and the project didn't go over by any stretch of the imagination. But I think one of the like legacy schedule dates stayed in there like 2 weeks beforehand from when we originally scheduled it. So that led to a little bit of confusion, but at the end of the day, it was no big deal.
Yeah, we did have to work through that. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Because we were trying to figure out, you know, Colleen was going back to work, Quinn was, you know, it was time for us to get out of the in-laws' house, and we wanted to be back before the holidays, which I think we all knew in conversation, but when, you know, the conversation doesn't match the schedule in there. So I think that's just a small administrative thing that can get cleaned up. At the end of the day, didn't change any of our feeling about the job or our happiness with it.
Oh, that's a good point. You know, it's what we have seen over the years, and I think it's true. I think it's true with any profession. It's a long series of small details. You know, and all of the small details matter, and they all add up, and they're just as important as the big stuff. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
sharing your thoughts with us. And we're excited to have this time together.
If you're out there and you're looking for a great general contractor who's going to give you a lot of communication and comfort in your new house, I'd definitely check out and recommend Biehl Brothers.